Hi everyone, this is your host Ernie signing in, and welcome to It Only Happens to Ernie podcast. Hi guys, welcome back to my podcast. How are we doing this week? So I just want to, talk a little bit about my 4th of July weekend. When I came out with last episode, I did a little drop in the beginning, and I think I mentioned that I was going out of town. And so 4th of July weekend, since 4th of July is on Saturday, Friday was technically the holiday of the 4th of July. So Steven and I, we had planned a month prior that we were going to visit my aunts and my uncle that lives in Columbus, Ohio. So that's where we went. We left here Thursday night and spent the night with them from Thursday night all the way to like Sunday. And obviously came home on Sunday. But guys, I had the best long weekend ever. Starting off Friday, I felt like I had all my all-time favorite things that I like to spend the day, and it was just all on Friday. Like we went to Pins, which it's like they had like bowling and like arcades and different games and stuff like that, and you can like get drinks. So we went to play with my family duck bowling. I learned that I'm not too shabby for someone who never played before, because I was leading for 8 rounds, guy. There was a total of 10 rounds. I was leading in our team. That was me, Steven, my aunt, my uncle, and my aunt Apple, and I think maybe one more person. Anyways, there was like 10 of us total. And I was leading for 8 rounds. And of course, Steven's always cheat in the end and somehow beat me at the very last round. We were like kind of close, but I was reading for 8 rounds. So you know what? In my head, I won that game. I don't care. And then we had ice cream afterward, which is just absolute best on the hottest day of the year. We had like a heat wave that whole week and that weekend. And then we went to Barnes and Nobles, which anybody who knows me, I love books. I love Barnes and Nobles. That is like my favorite place in the world. I just like when you walk in, I feel like at home. The smell of books and the smell of the bookstore. I love it. I love it there. It's like my happy place. And you betcha I walk out of that store an hour later with something in my hand. We went to my favorite Asian store near their house. And it's more Chinese Asian store, which is a lot better than H Mart in my opinion. If you know what H Mart is, it's Korean style Asian market. And like I love H Mart, but they don't always have some of the Thai stuff or some of the like Chinese stuff that I like growing up with. But anyways, we got some groceries there for our classic hot pot at home. And if you're questioning hot pot on the hottest day of the year, you're absolutely right. That is part of being a true Asian, is to sweat over a hot bowl of noodles or a hot pot when it's already boiling outside. And I don't know, it does something to your soul. I don't know how to explain it. I prefer hot pot over like Thai barbecue or Korean barbecue, to be honest. If you don't know what hot pot is, it's basically a bowl of broth with everything you love in it. And you have like a pot right in the middle with different broths. So you could have like spicy broth base, or you could have like a mushroom soup base. But yeah, it's a bowl of broth with everything you love in it. You have a pot right in the middle, sort of like a camping style. And you have all the veggies like bok choy, watercress, mushrooms, carrots, pumpkin, I don't know, baby corn, like whatever you want to add. And then you add your meats of choice, which my personal favorite is like beef slices. They slice it real thin, roll it up, and then freeze it. Or like you could do pork slices. If you like seafood like my family, you can add clam, mussel, oyster, I don't know, like squid or calamari, shrimp, like whatever you want, whatever your heart desire, you can add it to the pot. And that's the best part of it, is that everything just mixed together, adds all the flavor to the broth, and it's the best thing ever, if you can't tell. But oh my gosh, it was just so great and so much food. And if you think that was it, no. We chill out for a little bit, and Uncle Ben's and Aunt Power made snacks and pack, and we drove to a drive-in movie and we watched Toy Story. I've never been to a drive-in movie before, so I was super hyped, super excited. They said that it was the only one left in the city, and it was actually right by their house. We watched Toy Story 5 together. And I don't know about you guys, but as a millennial girly here, it made my heart so happy. I grew up with Toy Story, so it was very nostalgic for me, and it's just an awesome experience. I mean, I never really been to one, and that was my first time. And we have our electric car, so we pulled in. We had our AC on the entire time, and I thought that was crazy because I feel like when you use gas car, I feel like it could take a lot of gas just sitting there. But the whole entire, I think it was like an hour, maybe 2 hours of movie, it only took 1% of battery in our car. So that was like crazy to me. But anyway, we had our radio turned on to hear the movie, which I thought that was so cool. And then of course we had our snacks and our drinks and popcorn that we packed with us. The movie was great as always. I thought it was great to me. And then like throughout the whole movie, there was just, I don't know, like there's these fireworks nearby going off. And then like throughout the whole movie, I look over my window and had this like amazing view of fireworks. So I don't know. It was just a great day and just even better night with a great view. The movie started at 9:30 after the sun set. And so we didn't get home until late, like 11 p.m., 11:30 or so. But the drive back, Steve and I were saying what a great day it was. I literally call it the perfect day for me. It had all my favorite things in the world, my family, hot pot, ice cream, and Barnes & Noble, in that order. And this is just Friday, guys. I haven't even started talking about Saturday, which is the actual 4th of July. I had a proper seafood boil for the first time with crawfish. I have never had crawfish prior to this. I watched the entire process of how they cooked it and obviously got to eat it for the first time. And let me tell you, it's going to be really hard to top this first experience anywhere else. It was just so good. I mean, my uncle and my aunt deserve a shout out in this episode and probably the next one, to be honest. You guys, they're such an amazing people. I love my family. All weekend, it was all day nonstop. When I tell you that we literally ate all day Saturday, I'm talking about from 12 p.m. to nighttime 10 p.m. 60 pounds of crawfish for seafood boil total. That doesn't even include everything else in the seafood boil. We had som tam, which if you don't know, it's like Thai papaya salad. We had fried chicken, Thai style. We had steak, chips and dips, dessert, all the things that you could think of. And as if it's not enough food already, of course, we had rice, like a true Asian that we are. I watched my aunts and uncle cook nonstop all day. They started at 8 in the morning, guys, 8 in the morning, and did not stop till I don't even know when. They had their friends and neighbors were coming in, stopping by. Drinks were flowing and shots were taken, and they would not be 4th of July without any fireworks. So of course, my Uncle Ben's did an hour show of fireworks in his own backyard. I have never been that close to fireworks in my life. And it's just, I feel like it doesn't get more American than this. I mean, what a great way to celebrate America's 250th birthday. And that's what kind of inspired me to talk about in today's episode. I think many immigrants like myself and my family, 4th of July means something maybe slightly different than someone who's born here in America. My relationship with America and being an American is probably going to be different than someone who was born here and grew up here their whole lives. I feel like I can speak for myself and my family on this specific topic here. Before we got here to where we are now, before the fireworks and the celebration and the 60 pounds of crawfish and a perfect long weekend like this past one, long before the life we get to celebrate and experience now, life looks a lot different for all of us. Myself, my family, my aunt's Pawa and her family. And actually, my aunt's Pawa and her family are Hmong people. They were refugees when they moved here to the United States, and they have been through refugee camps. And yes, it's the one you hear about in the Midwest. My Uncle Ben's came here with his family. Sort of similar story to mine, but obviously his journey was so much harder compared to mine. I mean, this is Kentucky in like the 80s. Obviously there's no ESL class or anything like that, and having to work for as long as he could remember in Thai restaurants and odd jobs and different things like that before he could get to where he is now. And I think all of us has our own fair share of difficulties in our own immigration journey. I talk on here about the beginning of my immigration journey. And, you heard me talking about most of my struggles with school and learning English and adjusting my life here. But I never really got to talk about the actual process of my visa, green card, and eventually how I got my citizenship. So I thought this would be a really good episode to talk a little more about that today and, how it was when I was going through it myself and how different it was when I was going through it with Steven just a couple years ago. Now, when I talk about my family and I moving here, I think a lot of people think that we might have came with like a spouse visa, and me and my brother, just obviously happened to be tagging along my mom because my mom got remarried to my stepdad. But actually, when we came here with our tourist visa. My mom asked for a tourist visa before we officially moved here just to visit. And I was able to obviously get it along with my mom because I'm her kid. So for anyone who doesn't really know what a visa is basically a travel permit that allows you to travel to a specific country that is not listed just having your passport. So for example, like I am now an American citizen and I hold an American passport. I can go to Thailand without a visa just to visit, but it's a higher level passport compared to a Thai passport. So if you're Thai, unless you ask for a visa, you can't really come through as a tourist or to even stay here without a proper visa process. So that's what a visa is. And I was there with my mom when she had an interview in Thailand, for her 10 years visa. Now, I didn't realize this at the time, but I have learned that you don't necessarily need a green card in order to go to school here. What I mean by that is once you're granted to come here, you can just basically go to school here. Now, whether you're doing it legally or not, that's a different story, right? But I've learned that the school system here, it's not super strict with, I've learned that as long as you can come here, as long as you can come through the country, you can go to school here, which is why when you hear some stories about how our illegal immigrants are able to stay here, how did they able to have kids here, and how did their kids able to go to school here and all that. You hear all these stories sometimes, and it's because it technically is not a requirement for you to have a green card or social security number in order for you to go to school here. So actually, it was a pretty simple process of, okay, me and my brother, we moved here with my mom, right? And we got here a month or two in, and I was able to enroll in school basically right away of me moving here. And it's because we didn't necessarily need to have a social security set up or a green card process, which obviously takes a lot of time, and it could be a pretty hideous process depending on what your situation is. But the difference between holding a visa and having a green card is that the visa just permits you to travel to a specific country, but it doesn't permit you to stay there as a permanent resident or anything like that. So that's what green card is. In order for you to be a legal permanent resident, you need to have a green card, and comes with that, with a social security number. Now, you don't necessarily need to have a green card in order to have social security number. Now, when I talk about these kind of things, obviously things and laws were like process of visa and green card were a little different decades ago when I was going through it with my family. But it's different now. It was definitely a lot harder then for you to have a green card, and it was definitely longer. Like there's things and timeline and process that sort of holds you back. So you can't just come here and then file for green card thinking it's gonna take a year. No, sometimes it just takes longer than that. So it definitely took us, I want to say 2 to 3 years before we able to have a green card. And I have actually a little funny story about green card. So back in when I was going through it, right, in the the thick of it, my mom had filed for a green card, like a request for a green card. Obviously, we had to prove that my mom's and my dad's marriage were real. We had to go through like the US embassy, and they interview all of us, my brother and I think just individually as well. And we had to basically prove that my mom's and my dad's relationship and our family are real, because there's things out there, and I guess maybe there's instances in the past where people sort of pretend that they're family just to be able to have a green card or be able to stay in this country, and it's like a lie. So you had to actually prove that you're real, and yeah, your relationship or your marriage is real, your family is real, and so on. I remember being in the in the US embassy, and it was so scary because I remember my mom telling us this is where we live, you have to memorize that. And it's different when obviously you're not used to speaking English, and I didn't know a lot of English, so every words, even your address, become a memorization, and you're not used to postal codes, or I remember oh my god, I was a little bit panicking. What if I forget what postal codes? It was I felt like they might quiz me on information I might not remember. Our story had to be set straight, basically. It wasn't like we were doing anything illegally or we were hiding anything, but it's just, you just don't know how these things are gonna go, because they could just be well, I don't think that these are legit, even though our family is legit and my mom's relationship with my dad was legit. They could just deem it as not. I remember there was a lot of documents my mom had to prepare, which is nothing changes then, because when I was going through it with Steven as well, we also had to do that. We had to prepare basically a big binder of just pictures and tickets. I started saving plane tickets and saving the evidence that we were legit, that we were actually having a real relationship before we decide we were going to get married. I will talk a little bit more about Steve and I's journey maybe in other episodes, but I will be mentioning it here and there just because me going through it myself, I can definitely compare the difference. I will say things are a lot easier now. For example, I remember after we got our green card, I was already in high school, and I knew it was a few years because I was around 15 was when I got my green card. And by that point, I remember thinking I should have had my driver permit a while ago, but I couldn't because we were still waiting for my green card to come through. And one of the things was it was delay. I could have had it when I turned 15. And in West Virginia, you can have your permit and start practice driving when you're 15. Where I think in Maryland, you have to be 15 and a half or basically almost 16 to start driving. But I remember I got mine a little later because in our green card, they misspell my name, and even anybody who knows my full Thai name, it's so many letters. So I don't blame them for that part, to be honest. But when you're in high school and you're young and like everybody's like start driving and they're talking about, and you just like want to fit in, and that's part of being a teenager, was to start driving and all this other stuff, right? I was extremely frustrated because not only did they misspell my name, they got the state, like it was supposed to be West Virginia, which is W-E. Well, they got Wyoming, which is W-Y. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, I was just like two things. So I remember going to DMV trying to get my test, my permit test, because it's all computerized, and you go in a room, you take a test. And I couldn't take my test because they couldn't verify, it didn't match my identity. And so that was extremely frustrating. Obviously, we had to go back, refile the whole thing. They had to fix it. And I believe we had to pay for it as well, because we had to like send it back, and then they had to process it, change it, reprint, the whole 9 yards. And it was just extremely frustrating. And it sort of pushed back on like me getting my permit, getting my driver license. I was like a year late on having my permit and having my driver license and driving and all that stuff. The thing about DMV, we had to drive about an hour out. Now it's different. Now it's a little closer to my house, but we had to drive to Romney, which is about basically an hour from where I live. And so it's already a long drive. And then you think, oh, okay, like normal people, when you want your driver license and you want your permit, it's a quick process. It's not like super quick, like you still have to wait for them to process things. But the difference between a normal citizen and like being an immigrant and not having your US citizen at the time was we had to wait hours on end for a US embassy to verify basically our background. Usually when you go in, you get in a line, you tell them what you need done, and then, you have to obviously wait. But then, like, they process everything right then and there. Well, if you're an immigrant, that is not the process. What we had to do, I don't know if this is, like, the same everywhere else, but this is, again, middle of nowhere, West Virginia. So what they had to do was, okay, I go in, same step, tell them what I need. Okay, cool. They had to call U.S. Embassy, and we had to wait for them to basically run an entire background to see that, we're actually legal and we're legit before they could give us basically an okay for them to grant us a permit or a driver license or what so. And I remember like having to wait, I don't know, like 3 hours or so just for them to give us an okay that we can have a driver license or a permit. And you guys, of course, I failed. I remember having to go to 3 different times because the first time my green card, they misspelled my name, yada yada. So we had to wait for that, for them to ship a new green card information. And then we had to go back. And of course, when I went back, I failed my permit test. And so, we had to try again. And then I went back in again. Thankfully, I passed this time. But it was like each time we had to wait through process and wait for them to give an okay that they basically ran through a background. Nothing came up suspicious, and we were okay to have our driver license or our permit. And it was just like an annoying, long process. Now, when I tell you, when I was going through this process, similar again with my husband, when he moved here, he obviously need a U.S. driver license. And so we went up. Thankfully, it's a different location now. It's only 30 minutes away from my house, which is a lot better and an easier drive because everything is through Social Security now. You don't have to sit and wait because basically if you have a Social Security, it granted you depending on what kind of Social Security number that you have. And it basically holds your visa status or even like your immigration status, your residency status. It's all within your social security number. So if you have social security number, you basically like the government gives you an okay to have these things. And so anyways, when I was going through it with Steven, he did not have to wait hours on end like I did. And I was like, thank God that they stopped doing that, because, you could just do everything right? But like if they didn't give you an okay because something is wrong, then you can't have your driver license. So I thought that was interesting that the process has changed now through times and it's a lot easier, thankfully. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about why it's important to have Social Security in order to basically function in America. Just learning from actually my aunt's experience as she begins her immigration journey herself here. Since everything hooked up to Social Security number, you cannot open a bank account or have a credit card or get a driver license or anything like that. Like things that you don't really think about if you're an American citizen, and it makes life kind of difficult when you don't have your social security number. Now, it's a little different when I was going through it with my family, but I've learned like we can do half the things. With my process with Steven, though, it's a bit different because he's from UK, so the process of immigration is obviously different compared to coming from Thailand. And so the way we went through it, when we did our immigration process, we went with the spouse visa. And the way this works, at least with our case, is if you're approved for your spouse visa, then you're automatically approved for having a green card, which then if you have a green card, you're going to have social security number, which is important because you need that to be able to work. You need that to, obviously, like I said, opening up a bank, having a credit card, all the things that you don't really think about. You need your social security now in order to get through the entire process. I'm talking things like getting scholarship, or getting a grant, and like having a loan, or like anything like that when it comes to like financial aspect or jobs. So if you don't have that, it could be very difficult for you to basically live here as an immigrant now in America. Now, I'm not trying to sit here and say I promote a legal immigrant, but I do want to say I understand why there's a lot of illegal immigrants in this country, because by the time you get through all this, if you can get through the whole having to get your visa done and having your green card and having your social security and all that process, which never mind the other aspect of like, what if you don't know English? Like when I first moved here, I didn't know English. So you might need to hire a lawyer, you might need to hire like some kind of like representative, to file these things for you because you're not familiar with English language. Like that is a hefty fee and money that you have to pay. And obviously not everybody has all of that money, especially if you're coming from a background that, you're trying to escape like your home country because it wasn't safe and you didn't have job security and like all these like other reasons, right? You just, I'm not saying that I support illegal immigrants, but going through it myself twice, I completely understand why people ended up being illegal immigrants. I don't think anybody, if they had a choice, want to be illegal unless obviously if you had other bad intentions. But anyways, then comes the time to when I decided I want to file for my citizenship. If you don't know, there's 100 questions you need to study for before you get your citizenship. Now, they're not going to ask you all 100 questions, but you also don't know which one they're going to ask you. And it's the question like, who's the governor of your state? And what does the Constitution do? And who makes federal law? And how many U.S. senators are they? I mean, you can look this up online and it's available for anybody to look at. And none of it is really hard, to be honest. They have a study guide online with answer, and you can print it out or whatever, which is what I did. And all it is just memorization. But of course, having to file for citizenship, that costs money, which kind of like what I was talking earlier. If you're an immigrant and you're not confident in your English or in the process of filing things, you have to maybe hire a lawyer. I believe I paid $800 for the entire process, but I filed everything myself. So if you can only imagine if you're someone who has to hire a lawyer or anything like that and you don't really know how to file it yourself, and none of it is cheap, it all requires money. And that's why I said, like, I don't promote it, but I can understand people either they don't have the money to, or because of just different circumstances in life, like maybe you're not able to work anymore, or maybe you got sick or what so. And it's just something to think about, if you don't really understand how illegal immigrants works or anything like that. I'm not going to comment on like the different side of the illegal immigrants, but in my perspective, I can see why people struggle with this. There were definitely times when I was going through the immigration process with Steven, there were some things I questioned, like, should I have just done it, not illegally, but should I have just done it the other way, where by law, you're not really supposed to do it, but there's a way around that. And one of the things was like, we decided with the spouse visa, Steven can only visit me 3 months at a time. And there were definitely time when, obviously long distance get really hard. And I learned later on that Steven actually could have just overstayed his visa. And since he's already here in this country, it would have been quicker process maybe for them to like approve our visa or approve for him to stay here. Like, I question if we made the right decision, but looking back now, like, I wouldn't change a thing. I think us having to go through that, it taught us a lot as a couple, and it made us stronger, to be honest. But yes, there was definitely moments where we say to ourselves, like, maybe you should have just done it this way, like, because we felt like we did everything right by the book, but it was taking us so much longer. So, and we don't have any kids, we don't have anything that make our circumstances so much harder. So like I said, I can only imagine if my circumstances were different, if my financial or family circumstance were different, how much different it would be. And so I'm grateful for, the fact that I didn't have to worry about these things that other people had to worry about. I think being American as an immigrant puts such a different perspective on what American is. With all that I said, like, with all the troubles that I had to go through and my husband and I had to go through, I feel like obviously there's a pros and cons and everything being here in America. Some of the cons is basically like me talking about having to go through the entire process of paperwork and delay of things, and just you had to sort of like fight your way through to basically be here. But what America offer you in return for you to be here, I think outweighs opportunity that I wouldn't get to have if I were to stay in Thailand. My mom, just like any other immigrant, saw the opportunity that America could offer us life here. Times and times again, if you're around her long enough, you hear her say, we wouldn't be able to have this if we were still in Thailand, or we wouldn't be able to have, this kind of life or like this opportunity if we were still in Thailand. It's just her basically explaining that, like, I know that it's not always just butterfly and rainbow. Life is difficult wherever you're at, and I believe that she made the right choice for us to move here in America. Now, with all that I said, do I think America is a perfect country? Well, absolutely not. But nor is Thailand. There's many reasons, I decided not to move back now that I'm an adult and I can decide my own life. And it's probably the same reason as why many people seek any opportunity to be in this country, just like any other immigrants. When we're talking about American dream, you hear now people say American dream is dead. And, there's definitely times where I definitely feel like that. But in all honesty, to me, American dream isn't dead. Sometimes you have to see it through an immigrant eyes like me or like my family. And American dreams feel different when you had to earn your way to be here. And I think that gratitude can exist the same time as disappointment or dissatisfaction. Two things can be true at once. America gives me the opportunity that I have and had in my life. Being able to run this small little podcast of mine and share my immigration journey on here. Having the freedom and privilege to be able to change my career midway. Having the life that I could only dream of, to be honest, growing up in Thailand. I am forever grateful to be here and building my life here with my family. I can't speak on all of my husband's behalf, but I hear him said time and time again after moving here some time now to be with me. He said that he's glad to be here and glad that he moved here instead of me moving the other way around. And I do agree because in some aspect, our life wouldn't be the way that it is now. We definitely wouldn't have the opportunity that we have now if I would have moved to UK. My husband, he's able to change his career like 180. He's in the career now he wanted to do and was trying to pivot and change like so many years ago when he was in UK but couldn't because there's just not a lot of opportunity unless you live in a places like London or like a big city, which he really wasn't at the time. Where he from, it's a bit more rural, like a small village. And so, if he didn't move to be in a big city, he wouldn't be able to have the career that he has now. And so he's very glad that he's able to have that and able to pivot that now that he's in the US. And so overall, I think we made the right decision for our family and our future. And just talking about like being in Thailand, being in US, being in UK, I want to share with you this week my Thai word of the week. Now, I know I didn't do it last episode, but the Thai word of the week this week is baan. Again, baan, which means home. And along with the word baan, you also have baan kud and baan yu. Now, baan kud is your home where you're born, or another word, your birthplace. And baan yu means the home that you actually lived. And I thought this is the perfect word for this week's episode. It's just so interesting that in my Thai culture, we recognize that you can have more than one home. When people ask me where my home is, my answer is never just a straight, simple answer, because for me, Thailand is also my home and will always be my first home, but so is here in America. Like, home is where my family is. Home is where I was born and also where I became an American. And I think that's the beautiful thing about being an immigrant. You can have more than one home, whether it's your baan kud or baan yu, US, Thailand, or England, they're all still considered home. And this is for anyone who ever had to move away from where they were born or where they used to live their whole lives. Any immigrants that had to move away from their home country, you can relate to what I'm talking about here. I'm so grateful to be able to have such a diverse experience in this life. And, even though I went through a difficult time of moving here with my take being an immigrant, I am proud to be an American. I mean, I had to earn my place to be here. It was not a easy journey to get to where I'm at today. And I'm grateful for opportunity. I'm grateful for the home that I made for myself and the home that I have now and my family and the friends that I made along the way. And so that's the note that I want to leave with today's episode, guys. If you're new here and you haven't followed me, make sure you hit that follow button from whatever platform you listen to. And I know I haven't like post a lot on my social media content and things like that. I sort of like took a little break from that, but I'm gonna try to sort of like get back into it. And if you've already been following me and following my social media page or been liking my stuff and even sharing my stuff, I just want to say I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here and listening to me yap yet again. And if you're still here listening this far and nobody has said it to you yet today, thank you for being you. And that's a wrap on this episode of It Only Happens to Ernie podcast. This is your host, Ernie, signing out.